Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. Welcome to Shaq.
What's up, folks? It's your boy Shaq House here. Yeah, hope your week went well. Mine went well as well too. We're gonna try something slightly different right now. This character, what am I talking about slightly different? I've covered Alpha Flight characters who are mutants before, but never know Alpha Flight characters who have been converted to X-Men. That's right. Right now we're going to be talking about the Canadian technophile. That's right, he's a technophile, Madison Jeffries. He's a technophile because he has a thing for the female mobilized version of the Danger Room. You'll see in the video what I'm talking about. Other than that, we're going to be talking about his powers and other mutants who have similar abilities that he could be compared to, both technopaths and hypermechanics as well. Don't know what I'm talking about, Willis? Check it out.
Madison Jeffries is a mutant with the power to psionically affect metal, plastic, and glass. He can levitate anything made of or containing these materials and manipulate them with considerable finesse. Jeffries can completely disassemble complex machinery in instants without breaking or damaging a single part. His abilities can be used to fix broken parts or tear machines to pieces. Madison possesses a technoforming capacity, that is, the ability to create working machines or devices by taking raw materials and modifying them to fit the design. Jeffries has a talent for mechanically duplicating human physiology in that he can take a random collection of spare parts and form them into a giant animatronic hand or a fully automated android mimicking the form and range of movement of a real person. Before now, Madison was not an inventor by nature. While his power was capable, he himself could not direct to form state-of-the-art technology. Instead, he relied upon a normal accumulation of mechanical skill and knowledge to guide whatever he created. But one aspect of his power, however, that allowed him to offset this limitation was a mind tap ability. By having someone mentally focus on the blueprints and design of some high-tech machine, Madison could act as a conduit, unleashing his power guided by the information he was tapping from that person and then creating whatever the construct was to proper specifications. Given the level of technical sophistication that Madison would display in later years, it is possible that he retained knowledge of each device that he created through a mind tap, allowing him to recreate the process on his own at a later date if he wished. As his knowledge and skill levels progressed, however, Madison began conceiving of his own designs and inventions. Eventually, Madison took control of the Bochs armor from his friend, inventor Roger Bochs, and created the Bochs Mark IV armor out of it. Reconstructing the Bochs armor into a modular robot enabled him to make better use of his mutant power. The Bochs armors 2 through 4 were created from what's called living metal, a uniquely constructed alloy somehow capable of physically interfacing with organic beings. By touching the suit, Madison could phase in with the metal, mingling his molecules with the structure of the suit itself and placing his mind directly inside of the suit's control circuitry, essentially becoming the robot. The living metal could also be programmed to recognize individual genetic codes, allowing Jeffries to ensure that only he could phase in or out in order to control the suit and allow certain individuals access as well. Jeffries could alter the molecular structure of metals to create living metal out of any scrap that was available to him, so that he wasn't dependent always on just having one suit to use. However, while phased into the suit, Jeffries' mutant power was limited to only affecting the suit, not other exterior objects. He could, however, absorb additional materials into the armor on contact, increasing his mass, size, and strength accordingly. By mentally modifying his suit, Jeffries could reshape all or parts of his mechanical body into different features, extending wings from his back to aid in flight, turning his arms into machine guns or laser weapons, converting his entire body into a giant wheel, sled, miniature fighter jet, etc. But by this point in his life, Madison was a skilled enough engineer to convert himself into a living transport ship of all of Alpha Flight. In his ship form, he was capable of artificial gravity, atmospheric stabilizers, and hyperspace travel. He later remodified his armor's appearance to create the Bochs Mark V armor, but only briefly employed this version of the suit. Upon rejoining Alpha Flight, Madison Jeffries had quit using the Bochs identity and armor. He was later kidnapped by Zodiac on his first mission and later turned up again as one of their Gemini twins. The Gemini described themselves as the Gemini of metal and the Gemini of flesh, which could be interpreted in two ways. One is that Madison was the Gemini of flesh, and his twin was a metallic doppelganger created and animated by his powers. The other is that Madison was the Gemini of metal, and his partner was his older brother, Scramble, the mixed-up man, Lionel Jeffries, back from the dead. You see, in life, Lionel had the transmutative power over flesh and organic matter as a mirror image of his brother's power over metal and inanimate material. But in any case, the entire Zodiac team was apparently slaughtered by Weapon X, leaving only Madison. Additionally, he shared a psychic link to Lionel, allowing them both to detect each other's presence. Since joining the X-Men, his power has expanded to include a form of machine telepathy. He can now sense the presence of mechanical systems and psychically interpret information about them from a distance. Madison often receives this information as if the machines are actually talking to him. He can sense the function and capabilities of machines, determine whether they are operating properly or suffering from some sort of hardware or software malfunction, and so forth. When interacting with computer systems, Madison can mentally read their programming and stored files and can now modify this information as an intricate extension of his technoforming ability. At his present skill level, Madison Jeffries is now a mathematical and engineering savant and has developed new forms of quantum mechanics and interdimensional interfaces. Some fun facts. Madison Jeffries received training in hand-to-hand combat and the use of firearms during his time in the United States Army, where he received the rank of specialist and was a highly skilled mechanic. Like I said earlier, he's also the older brother of Lionel Jeffries, aka Scramble, and they both served in Vietnam. Madison is also a chick magnet, from Heather Hudson to Diamond Lil, and because of his machine telepathy, Danger. Yeah, Danger, look at this. How he doesn't cut himself making out with her, I don't know. But anyway, he weirds people out, but he's comedic fodder for Dr. Nemesis, but doesn't seem fazed by it at all. Okay, but how does Madison compare to other mutants with similar powers? Well, let's start off with Wiz Kid. The Wiz Kid, he began as a transmutator like Madison, using his mutant power to affect metal, plastic, glass, and other synthetic or inanimate forms of matter. But he's also a technoformer, able to psionically rearrange machinery, parts of machinery, and raw materials into various complex forms and functions of his own specifications, often defying scientific logic. He can affect anything from mild reconfigurations of Lego blocks to manipulating his specially motorized wheelchair into various vehicles like helicopters, airships, or tanks, and he can even absorb excess materials into the chair in order to make it proportionally larger and accommodate extra passengers. He's also a technopath. Like Forge, he can understand machinery and electronics, understanding how mechanical components come together to operate, and like Madison, he's got machine telepathy. I mean, Takashi is already a computer science expert with an inventive genius, which enhances this aspect of his ability. And he can even create and program computer systems, evaluate the function of machines psionically, diagnosing flaws in the design, and extrapolating and refinements and improvements. His time on Krakoa has expanded this power even further, allowing him to easily utilize and configure Krakoan biotechnology and even perceive the latent potential of mutants to work together in unison. I mean, yeah, he's egotistical and he likes to play things very close to the chest, but he doesn't need that wheelchair anymore either. He doesn't need that wheelchair any more than Forge or Cable near their bionic parts. It's the Krakoan age, for Christ's sake. They got mad healers on Krakoa who can make you whole. I mean, that maimed look that he's got now is just way too damn emo. Now, Scalphunter from the Marauders. Scalphunter, he's a mutant whose abilities went unspecified for quite some time. Though self-stated to be a mutant early on, no specific power was attributed to him for the longest time. And for a while, It appeared that his mutant power was to psionically shape modules from raw materials into weapons of his choice. He was seen assembling components into a variety of different configurations by modifying their shape and construction. He wears a costume that gives him easy access to a wide variety of components to manipulate, and he regularly assembles a wide variety of firearms and projectile weapons from his vest, and the accompanying ammunition as well. Later, the Marvel handbooks confirmed his mutant ability to be technoforming, but it's subtle enough that it's difficult to diagram. The best understanding actually comes from the mystical cannibal entity known as Bloody Lips, who once actually ate Scalphunter, gaining access to his powers and describing them through an inner monologue. Scalphunter's technical prowess has a cognitive aspect, like Forge, allowing him to perceive how machines work and how scrap materials might be assembled to make new machines. But what's less clear is if he also has a psionic aspect like Madison Jeffries or Wiz Kid that molds scrap materials or reconfigures them in ways that normally could not be done by hand. If he is truly a technomorph, he's a low-level one, as he clearly needs to be physically touching his components and cannot affect them remotely through some other telekinetic assembly or whatever. And by the way, he's dropped the Scalphunter name since his resurrection on Krakoa. That's been silently retired, and he now goes by his surname, Greycrow. However, similar to the Washington Redskins name change, people will still call him Scalphunter nonetheless. Okay, Forge. What's the difference between Madison Jeffries and Forge? Well, for one thing, Madison's machine telepathy anthropomorphizes information about nearby machines and mechanical systems. You see, he hears machines tell him what they're made for, what they're capable of doing, what sort of programming they contain, etc. But in the end, though while his mutation is providing him with this information, once he has it, it's just still information. There's no intuitive or automatic effect that processes that data for him in a special way. Now Forge's basic power is the ability to invent virtually anything technological, but there are a number of aspects to it. He can rapidly conceptualize new ideas. After thinking up of a new invention, his mind will begin quickly and automatically running down the mathematical and engineering principles necessary to turn that idea into a reality. And his power also helps him to assess the materials available to him in the immediate area, and whether he can practically build his invention with what's sitting around. But even when he's not thinking of a specific invention, this ability to perceive mechanical energy allows him to instantly recognize the inherent mechanical principles of nearby objects. This feeds him information on a much simpler forms of machine than Madison Jeffries. For example, Forge can intuit the load-bearing capacity, structural integrity, and usefulness as a lever or a brace for a simple steel I-beam. Madison, he can read complex machines like engines, motors, computers, but Forge, his power lets him read the most basic individual components of machines like that and how they could be assembled to make such complex machines in the first place. But on the other end of the spectrum, Forge can also intuit information about complex machines and electronics, but only in terms of their own schematics. For example, he can look at a computer chip and intuit its processing power and what its components are, but Madison, he could derive actual information encoded on the chip itself. Now overall, though this video isn't intended as an overall compare and contrast, I have to give it to Takashi as being the best technopath in this whole video. He's a technopath, a hypermechanic, and a transmutator whose powers have evolved past Madison Jeffries. He understands mutant biology and may one day be able to manipulate flesh as easily as he does machines. Plus, he survived the horrors of the Inferno crossover, similar to the war history of the other three tech-based mutants here. Now, Madison's role in Krakoa with his power takes a backseat to Wiz Kid, Forge, and even Greycrow. Now, Greycrow, he needs to evolve beyond just using his power to make weapons. Forge, he's Forge, he can literally invent whatever he wants. And Madison needs a resurrection on Krakoa along with his brother, if they haven't been resurrected already, given the whole exile storyline with Sabretooth. Okay, folks, that's what I got for you this week. I want you to tune in next week. I got something special for you then. But in the meantime, you have a good week. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack, house. Yes!
Yeah.